Hey everyone, welcome to Cinema Trip Reviews. Today on the show, we're going to be talking about Jurassic World Dominion. Hey everyone, welcome to Cinema Trip Reviews. I am Wyatt, of course, and today we're going to be talking about Jurassic World Dominion. But first, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Make sure to go check out our show and audio-only versions across all podcasting platforms that are out there. Make sure to leave us a good review. But yeah, cut right to the chase. I watched Jurassic World Dominion over the weekend here. Now, this is a movie that I didn't see in theaters when it first came out. It just wasn't really on my priority list, which is odd because I grew up a huge Jurassic Park fan. The original Jurassic Park is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's one I always watch maybe 1 or 2 times yearly, but it always has a special place in my heart, and I know a lot of people's as well. The second and third ones, JP fans fight over which one's better out of those. I think Lost World's the best sequel in the Jurassic Park series, excluding the end part with the T-Rex going to San Diego. I still not a big fan of that, but the rest of the movie itself leading up to that is great. I love it. JP3, I just never really was a huge fan of. Jurassic World, I did enjoy when it first came out. I remember going to see it in theaters, and I thought it was kind of a nice, refreshing take on the franchise after so many years. Did not like Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom at all. I didn't even go see it in theaters just because I was so iffy on it, and I just ended up not liking it at all. I haven't came back and watched it at all since I originally saw it when it came out. So I really was going into this one with not really high expectations at all, and especially seeing a lot of the mixed reviews when it first came out. Man, this movie just did not do anything for me. I made the mistake of going out and watching the extended cut that was released on Peacock. Man, it was rough. And I mean, I think the original cut's like 2 hours and 20 minutes, I believe. This extended cut's like 2 hours and 40. This is almost a 3-hour long movie, and it didn't need to be anywhere close to that. They could have got this movie at around 2 hours and it would have been fine, maybe a little bit before. But man, I just did not like this movie. I don't think it was a terrible movie at all. I don't think it was a bad movie, but it definitely wasn't good. It was very mediocre. Now, the big storyline coming out of this was the return of Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum, and Sam Neill as Ellie Sattler, Alan Grant, and Ian Malcolm. They weren't really necessarily needed for this movie, and they weren't given enough to do throughout the whole thing. Now, to kind of sum up the story itself, we're just going to get right into it. The movie opens up, from what I understand, very differently than the theatrical one. This one, they actually added the prologue that was released maybe a month or two before the actual movie came out and was released in theaters. The prologue that was set 65 million years in the past. You actually got to see the dinosaurs kind of roaming around doing their thing in their natural habitat. And then it cuts like 65 million years in the future, and then you get that T-Rex just going in and just destroying that the drive-in movie theater, which was all right. I thought it was kind of a cool scene, but there really isn't any payoff or anything going off of that going forward. But the gist of the story, and this is where a lot of people have problems with. One, there's kind of 2 stories going on, and they end up intersecting later in the movie. You get, Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard are taken care of. I forget her name. I think it was like Maisie. She's the clone from Fallen Kingdom. They're kind of hiding her away out in the mountains somewhere. Blue, of course, is out in the mountains. Blue ended up having a little baby velociraptor named Beta, which they thought it was going to be impossible to do. Pretty much, poachers end up taking Maisie and the little baby velociraptor, and trying to take it back to Biosyn, who's led by Dotson. Remember Dotson?
Dotson! We've got Dotson here! See, nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares about Dotson. It's so weird to bring him back, all these years later with really no mention in between since that original first movie. It was kind of jarring to see that character brought back into the fold. And we'll get more on that here in a minute. But they're bringing them back because Dr. Wu, Henry Wu from the original, and I believe he was in Fallen Kingdom and Jurassic World as well. He believes that their DNA, the Beta and Maisie, can help cure diseases throughout the world, and they can help eradicate the big bad kind of the second part of the story with Alan Grant, me and Malcolm, and Ellie Sattler, which are and this is the one that everybody has problems with, are these locusts. Now, Biosyn created these locusts, which are just going out and just wreaking havoc and destroying crops across not even the United States, but across the world, just destroying crops. And at the rate that it's going, people are just going to run out of food, and it could be the end of civilization, and it could lead to all sorts of fucking trouble. But Biosyn is the root cause of these fucking locusts. And these locusts end up being a huge plot point of this movie, because they're trying to figure out a way to eradicate them, or in this case, Ellie Sattler and Grant and Malcolm are trying to get evidence so they can bring all this to, the government to say Biosyn was the ones that created this. They're at fault. We need to take them down, find a way to eradicate these locusts. And that was really a huge part of people's problems with this, because that takes a lot of the movie. A lot of this movie is about those damn locusts that you only see a handful of times, whereas this is the third part of the trilogy of Jurassic World. The whole point of these three movies were to get these dinosaurs out to the fucking mainland to really create Jurassic World. So you can see these dinosaurs just out and coexisting with humanity, and there really isn't much of a payoff. The story isn't even really about that, which is odd. You would think going into the third movie of a trilogy about Jurassic World, about the dinosaurs finally getting open, they make it a huge point at the end of Fallen Kingdom that we're letting these dinosaurs go. It was the little girl's decision. Gives me a headache thinking about it, because that's one of the reasons I hated the movie so much. We're just going to let this huge important decision of letting these dinosaurs go in the hands of this little clone girl. Like, it baffles me. It makes me frustrated and angry just thinking about it. But the dinosaurs really kind of take a back seat in this movie. I mean, in the beginning of the movie, you really get to see this news report towards the beginning where it's just all these kind of intercut clips of all these people having issues with dinosaurs out in the real world, out in humanity, like the Mosasaurus in the ocean taking down the fishing boat. There's a dinosaur wreaking havoc on a campground somewhere. A bunch of other stuff as well. That was the kind of stuff I was kind of expecting to see throughout the movie whenever it was first announced, because you would think with the dinosaurs being released into the wild where they're going to be coexisting with humans, you would think that would be a huge plot point of the movie. Maybe not necessarily how to get them together and get them out, or maybe about how they are going to coexist, how they can maybe it would cut all these years in the future where now humanity kind of looks different. They actually had to prepare for these dinosaurs. They had to build like fences around certain big buildings or city areas. I don't know. I feel like that they should have went that route, but instead they really leaned heavily into this locust story, and it just feels very awkward. Like, why would you do this? Like, what was the whole point of all this trilogy of these movies leading up to the dinosaurs going into the real world, just to focus on these locusts? It doesn't really make any sense. And not only you get that, but to the back half of the movie, you're going to the Biosyn facility, which is its own like huge enclosed area, kind of like a Jurassic Park, and that's where you really stay for the majority of the movie. So you're not even really out in the world. You're stuck into another facility filled with dinosaurs. So what was the point of letting the dinosaurs go out and creating Jurassic World in the first place if you're not going to focus on it and you're not going to have that be a part of the story? The only real part, other than the news clips at the beginning showing all these dinosaurs, affecting different people, is whenever they go, I forget wherever they go to some foreign country, and they find like a dinosaur black market deep underground where they're selling like dinosaur eggs, they're selling baby dinosaurs themselves, they're selling meat and food made out of dinosaurs. It's just the bad of the bad are down in there in the black market selling dinosaurs. And it was interesting, I guess, but that's really the only real thing you get to see like set within the story about these dinosaurs being out on the loose and open. And they never really explain how, because they let them out from that facility from Fallen Kingdom, that huge mansion where they were selling all these dinosaurs to wealthy billionaires and rich people. how did like velociraptors and these big dinosaurs and these T-Rexes get all the way across the world from this one centralized location at this mansion? It was just, they didn't really dive into that. I mean, maybe, I guess they just bought eggs and like these dinosaurs and just moved them and then bred them. But they don't really go into that too much either. My big problem with this movie, it doesn't feel like Jurassic Park at all. There's no heart to this movie. There's no soul to this movie. It's just an action schlocky movie pieced together, and they just slapped a Jurassic Park name on it, and we're just going to bring 3 of the original cast members back from the original. Oh, it's Jurassic Park. This could have been any other dinosaur movie, and I don't think it would have been on anybody's radar. It probably would have went straight to streaming or whatever. But I just was not a fan of this movie at all. They turned it into a fucking Jason Bourne, James Bond movie there, with riding around on motorcycles through the streets, getting chased by velociraptors. You got Bryce Dallas Howard running through buildings and jumping across rooftops and through windows, being chased by a raptor. In the beginning, towards the beginning of the movie, they're breaking out this baby triceratops, and they're going through a car chase through like this field. And it's just, this does not feel like Jurassic Park at all. This is just a typical, just very mediocre, just action movie. And it just happens to have a Jurassic Park name slapped right on the fucking front of it, just to draw attention and bring the people into their seats. I'm glad I didn't pay money to go to the movie theaters to see this, because I would have walked out kind of pissed. But I just don't understand the whole reasoning of building up this trilogy this far to not even really be about the dinosaurs out in the world. You have it just to be about these damn locusts that came out of nowhere just for this movie. And that was kind of the reason to bring Ellie Sattler and Grant and Malcolm back. And they're just not really given enough to do. They're just infiltrating the Biosyn facility the whole time. Malcolm's like a double agent. He's working with Biosyn, but on the inside, he's really trying to get some, just intel to kind of go in and expose Biosyn altogether. I just didn't feel like there was enough for these characters to do to justify bringing them back. It was kind of cool to see Ellie Sattler and Grant reunite and possibly, get together after all these years, because she was coming out of a failed marriage. Grant mentions that it's lonely being a paleontologist or whatever by himself all these years. I mean, he's kind of always had a thing for Ellie, which we all really kind of knew. But other than just kind of the, nostalgia feel of, oh, you get to see these characters again, that's about it. They kind of use Malcolm as like a comic relief in a sort of way. Like every time you see him, he's usually giving like these kind of I'm not going to even say funny one-liners. They're not very funny. But he's always giving like these little quips or these little one-liners that are make you supposed to, lighten the tension or make you laugh a little bit. It just didn't do anything for me. I mean, there's only a couple parts I liked, which was the one was added into the extended version with the T-Rex going through the actual drive-in theater there, tearing it up. The other part I really liked was when Bryce Dallas Howard, she gets ejected from the plane. She's fallen, she lands in the forest. She's trying to get away, and she's getting hunted by this dinosaur, and she's crawling on her stomach and going through this water, and then she goes underwater, and the dinosaur's like right a face at the water and starts roaring. And it was cool to just see that camera pan down with her in the water. That shot was really cool. I actually really liked that shot. A lot of it just didn't do it for me. You had a lot of eye roll moments. I've rolled my eyes so much that I thought they were going to get stuck in the back of my head. I was like the living Robert Downey Jr. meme. I guess kind of cool part, you got to see the Dilophosaurus back in action after being away for so long in these movies. The only time you really got to see it was in that first movie. The only time you've seen it since was like the hologram in Jurassic World. Man, and they bring it back in full force. You get like 4 or 5 Dilophosaurus in this movie. Which they take out Dotson, which you don't even really get to see the death. You don't really get to see a lot of deaths in this movie. Some of the big dinosaurs carry some people off, but you don't really get to see too many deaths. Another problem I have with the movie, it's just a small thing. It involves the Dilophosaurus. The Dilophosaurus is about to attack Claire, and Chris Pratt just comes in and just grabs it by the throat and just starts like kind of choking this dinosaur. It was just like, that's very weird, and I feel like all the other Dilophosaurus that were around would have kind of ganged up on him at that point, but I guess there was other people. I don't know. a lot of these, and I know you can say this about any movie, I guess, but a lot of these things in this movie happen because they needed to happen. Like, another point that I have to make is at one point you see Dodson going through his office and he pulls out, he has that Barbasol can that you see from the original movie sitting on a shelf, and it's all like all rusted and gross and stuff. It's like, how did you even find that? And one, the embryos in it would have been bad because they said that the embryos in the container, I forget how long, it's been a minute since I've seen Jurassic Park, but they said that they only last so long in that container because the container keeps them cool. So they were lost for who knows how long on that island after Nedry got killed, and they got covered up by all that mud and gross and blood and stuff from Nedry getting killed. How in the world did they find this Barbasol can? Because it was just kind of out in the middle of nowhere, off the beaten path where Nedry went. I don't understand how they would have found it. It was covered up, and I'm pretty sure that was the same island that had the volcanic eruption on it as well. So at what point did they go in and they were able to find this can? And then how were the embryos still good after all that time? Or did he just take the can for a memento? It's never really explained, but it doesn't make much sense either. Which really is this movie in a nutshell. Is like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Wu, who was pretty much a bad guy through Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom, he's kind of turned around in this one, I guess. He kind of wants to do right, and he wants to fix the locust issue. He wants to try to use Maisie and Beta's like DNA and tissue to be able to cure diseases and whatnot, because when the corporation captures Maisie and they bring her in, Wu shows her a video of her mom explaining that she was actually born. She wasn't a direct clone, but her DNA was altered to take out this like deficiency or this disease that her mother actually had that she ended up succumbing to and dying from. She was born and her DNA was altered. That way she can live a full, successful life and carry on her work. So she's not like a clone. She was actually born, and she is the daughter of this woman. And Wu knew her, so Wu's kind of telling her stories about her. Later, when she interacts with Ellie knew her mom, and she kind of talks about her there as well. But Maisie, the clone, really finds out more about her backstory and more about her mom, which I guess because she was involved with the last movie, you're kind of carrying that over into this one, which I wish the rest of the movie would have done. Maybe not necessarily about Maisie itself, but just the dinosaurs being loose in the world and stuff like that. I wish everything would have kind of carried over into this one instead of opening up a whole nother can of worms with a whole different story about these locusts. It just didn't make much sense other than just a reason to bring these old characters back, which, like, I mean, Hollywood, you're paid writers. I feel like you could have found a reason to bring them back other than just making up a whole story about these locusts that weren't anywhere to be found in any of these other movies. Colin Trevorrow isn't coming back for another one. He wanted to just do this trilogy. Why would you make a whole new plot point in this movie specifically? Why wouldn't you have carried over the story from the last one and just continued from there? It just didn't make much sense to me. And then you're introducing these Bond villains that are only in the movie for a little bit with like the poachers. It's just all very hokey and very just corny and cheesy and just very like schlocky action movie, just very mediocre. And I for one, I like action movies, but I'm not going to go out of my way to watch them all the time because they just, so many of them are alike nowadays. They just blend together and they just don't make it. There's not really one that sticks out anymore. Like, the action movies of today aren't like the action movies of old through like the 80s or even the 90s. They're very cut and paste, cut and dry, kind of the same thing over and over and over again. Just very just mediocre, just schlocky action. I know some people like them, some people are there, but there's just not enough substance there for me. So I just kind of tend to stay away from just mediocre, just big budget action movies. Because a lot of it is all CGI anyway. There's not really a lot of practical effects. So it just really doesn't do anything for me. Now, it was kind of cool to see them bringing practical effects back into the fold with this one a little bit more. There was a lot of CGI, but you also did get a lot of different practical effects. And I'm always impressed, and I always love seeing practical effects in movies. Not even just big budget movies, just movie nowadays, because you don't really see the practical effects anymore. It's all just done with CGI and green screen or blue screen, however they do it. So it's kind of refreshing to see them going back to some of the old methods. But that unfortunately was not enough to save this movie at all. It was just very mid to me. If I had to rank it out of all of them, out of the whole Jurassic Park series, I would probably say like number 1 is top tier. It's the best out of them all. You're not going to get any better than that. I would say Lost World is number 2. I'll probably put Jurassic World at number 3 because it was pretty entertaining. And then I would put JP3, Jurassic Park 3 right there. And I'm not a big fan of it at all, but at least it kind of feels like a Jurassic Park movie in a sense. Whereas like Fallen Kingdom, did not like it at all. And of course with this Dominion, I did not really like this one at all either. I would probably rank this one above Fallen Kingdom, but that's not saying much because I don't like either of these movies. I'm probably not going to return to either one of these movies either. When I watch Jurassic Park, I'm probably just going to do the original 1, 2, and then maybe the occasionally 3. And if anybody hasn't seen it, I'll put it in Jurassic World. I'm not a big fan of it, man. I know this is just going to sound weird, but I just wish they would return to the jungle, return to the roots, return to the islands. I don't want to see these dinosaurs out in the open world with people living among them. I don't want to see dinosaurs out in the streets of just some, foreign country chasing people on motorcycles and cars and stuff. That doesn't do anything for me. It just seems very bland and just boring to me. And it just doesn't feel Jurassic Park. This series has lost all its essence and lost all its soul. After Jurassic World, I feel like they shouldn't have gave the reins to Colin Trevorrow to do another 2 in a series. They should have just kept bringing in directors to kind of just make their own version of Jurassic Park. These one-off movies. You don't have to have them continuing, going through. Because as we saw with this Jurassic World trilogy, it never really came to a close. It never really ended up being anything. And I wish they would have just did these one-off movies kind of just in these Jurassic Park, on the Jurassic Park islands like Isla Nublar or Isla Sorna, because each director would have brought their own little take and what they maybe have been known for. Maybe one director would have had a little bit more action-y. Maybe one director would have had maybe a little bit of more horror feel to it. I think that's probably the best way to go about these Jurassic Park movies at this point. Now, unless they continue from this one, they're going to have to maybe reboot the series or kind of cut out some of the canon a little bit, maybe do what Halloween did and erase all the previous sequels and go back, maybe make a sequel to the original or the sequel to Lost World. Kind of continue off of those and let each new director do their own thing with the series. I think that would be the best. That would probably be the thing I want to see the most. That way you kind of get something different each time with these movies. You're not getting the same thing. Because through these 3 Jurassic World movies, there really was no payoff other than just all right, the dinosaurs are released in the real world and now humans just got to kind of learn to coexist with the dinosaurs. That's it. That was the whole point of the movie. Really, what you think that was going to be a huge part of this movie, it really wasn't. It was more about the locusts and just trying to take down the evil corporations. There just really wasn't anything that was worthwhile going to see this movie. There really wasn't a big payoff at all. I was never really a big fan of Owen, Chris Pratt's character in this movie. I was never a big proponent of Blue or the Velociraptors being trained. I hated that aspect of Jurassic World. I hated it in Fallen Kingdom. I hated it in this movie. It was just something to, bring kids into the movie theaters and buy toys. They just took everything about the Velociraptor and just made it just not scary. They took the meanness away from the Velociraptors. You have big raptors in this movie chasing people. But you really took everything that made the Velociraptor scary and you just dumbed it down and you made them friends with the people now. At least Blue. And I hated that in Jurassic World. I hated it through Fallen Kingdom and I hate it now. I think it was a terrible decision. You see it a lot in this movie. If you're ever getting attacked by a dinosaur, all you got to do is just hold up your hand and it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Just hold your hand out. They're going to be all right. They won't attack you. Just look it in the eyes. Don't let it know you're afraid and just hold your hand out. Stupid. It's fucking dumb. I just don't understand why they would have went this route. Dinosaurs are made to be afraid of. Dinosaurs are wild animals. They're going to hunt. They're going to kill. they're not meant to be trained, especially velociraptors. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Why would you do this? And I know I'm venting frustrations from Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom, but I mean, they're all part of the trilogy. They connect together. I blame Colin Trevorrow and I blame all these screenwriters, man. It's very dumb. And I know you just wanted to go out and get attention and sell toys or whatever, sell backpacks with blue on them. It's just fucking stupid. And that's really what this movie comes down to. It's fucking stupid. And I know, I'm sure there's some people out there that enjoyed the movie, and more power to you. I mean, I'm not going to tear anybody down for liking something, but my opinion personally, I just hated it. I did not like this movie at all. Like, I know I said earlier, it's not a terrible movie. It's kind of, I wouldn't say it's well made, but it's kind of put together kind of well. But it's not a good movie at all. It's not terrible, but it's not good. It's very mid, very mediocre. It's not one that I'm going to come back to at all. I don't have high hopes going forward, really, with any Jurassic Park stuff, unless, like what I said, maybe they retcon some of the older movies, and then they get new directors each movie to kind of have their turn and go in and see what they can do with this universe, what they can do with these dinosaurs and whatnot. I think that would be the best option. I don't want to see the next Jurassic Park movie be set in just, the open world with dinosaurs and humans coexisting. I think that was what Trevorrow wanted to do with his version and his vision of the trilogy that he had. But hopefully they go in a different direction throughout the next ones. 'Cause from now on, anytime they announce or make a new Jurassic Park movie, I'm going to be extremely skeptical. And I don't want to see Colin Trevorrow attached to it at all. Get his name out of here. Go direct something else. I don't want to see you attached to Jurassic Park going forward. All these movies now are making that first three movies, the trilogy, look amazing. Making Jurassic Park, Lost World, and JP3 look like the Godfather trilogy compared to Jurassic World trilogy, man. Hopefully we can get Quentin on sometime to talk about the original Jurassic Park, because he's a huge fan, just like myself, of that original movie. I would love to have him on here sometime to kind of break down and just to talk about it, because I believe me and him both can recite that first movie line for line. That's how well we know that original movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. So of course I'm gonna have some connection, and I'm gonna be a little angry when they go kind of veer away from what made the series so great and kind of got rid of the heart of the movie itself. I know I didn't really want to break down the whole movie because it really wasn't worth it to me. I normally don't like to shit on movies that I review very often. I usually like to try to find some good stuff to talk about them, or stuff that I liked. There really wasn't much that I liked out of this movie, aside from a couple of the big dinosaurs killing people. And they recreated the logo in the movie towards the end, with the T-Rex, with Rexy coming out and standing in front of that like circle water fountain type thing. Very cringe. That was the biggest eye roll I had of the movie. And of course you had to have a dinosaur fight at the end there, and the weird dinosaur with those huge claws looked like a Lady D from Resident Evil 8. Looked like her dinosaur out there helping Rexy out, taking down the Gigantosaurus or whatever the fuck it was called. I don't care. But I don't know. Hopefully they don't make another one of these movies for a long time. I'm done with Jurassic Park new movies at this point. I'm glad I didn't go see this in the theaters. But if there are people who liked it, more power to you. I'm glad you found some enjoyment out of this movie that I could not find at all. The only really part I enjoyed was just seeing Laura Dern, Sam Neill, and Jeff Goldblum return to the franchise. But yeah, that's a review for this week. I usually do a buy it, rent it, or miss it type thing. I say miss this movie, man. I think this is the first miss that I gave on the show so far. I definitely would say miss this movie, unless you're a huge Jurassic Park fan and you like Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom. I guess go out and check it out. But other than that, I'd say completely miss this movie. It's not worth your time. You're not going to get anything out of it. So make sure to like, share, and subscribe. As always, make sure to go follow us on Twitter at CinemaTripViews as well. Make sure to go check out the Linktree and Anchor pages so you can see the links for our audio-only podcasts out there. It's across pretty much all podcasting platforms. Make sure to check those out. Leave us a good review on those. And we'll see everybody next week.